Jared Poland, FroKnowsPhoto.com, here in beautiful New Hope, Pennsylvania. A very small but very artsy, pretty awesome town. Great place to test equipment out, and that's what I'm doing today. I have the Nikon 24mm 1.4 lens. What a really awesome lens. It smells like a red laser. If you've ever tried to smell a laser, you probably don't have a nose anymore, but I did. It smells like a red laser because it is so sharp. But what I am doing with this lens today, one, this video is being shot with the 24 1.4 on the D3S. So what I have done today, I've taken sample images with the 24 1.4, the 14 to 24 14 to 24 2.8 at 24, and the 24 to 70 2.8 at 24. So we're going to look at all three of those lenses, the same exact shot on a tripod, all of three of those at 24mm, to see if there is a difference and to see if the 24 1.4 is worth its over $2,000 price tag. So let's find out right after this. Jared Poland, FroKnowsPhoto.com. See ya. Hello there. So I've had a chance to play with the Nikon 24 1.4. What a crazy great lens that is. As you saw from the intro, I was in New Hope, Pennsylvania, shooting a lot of different sample images of the 24 1.4, along with the 14 to 24 2.8 shot at 24, and the 24 to 70 2.8 shot also at 24. The reason I did that is I want to stack up the 24s and see which is better, if any is better. And in my style of reviewing, I don't get uber technical. I look at the images. If they work, that's great. If the lens does what it is supposed to do, that's great. I don't shoot charts, focus charts and things like that. I try to use the equipment where it's going to be used, in its natural environment, and I don't sit around shooting charts and looking at corners and saying, oh my god, I'm zoomed into 1000% and there's some fringing or purple fringing and stuff going on. Listen, if it looks good, that's all that matters. Nikon's not going to put out a piece of glass, a professional piece of glass that's $2,200 that's going to be bad. So we'll just say that. So what you're going to see here are a lot of sample images. I'm going to run down the difference between 1.4 and shooting the lens somewhere else, 2.8, f4, f8, and things like that, to show you the difference, and put together the 24s all side by side at f8 to see which pops more and which is where it should be. None of those images, well, when I get to them, I'll tell you that they probably haven't been corrected, other than white balance, to give them the same color tone there. So what you're looking at right here is the kitty. You've seen Mr. Meowgie in this photo before, and this is shot at f1.4 with the 24 1.4. What you see around the cat is that he is tack sharp right on the eyes. He is right in there. Boom. All right? But look at the background. Look how buttery soft it is and how it's blown out. That's the effect you get with a 1.4. When you're shooting wide angles, the tendency is that they don't blow out the background, just because the 2.8 and being so wide, you're not able to compress the background unless you get really, really close to your subject. So same thing happens here with the 1.4, the 24 1.4. You get really close to your subject, and then the background blows out even more than if you were using a 2.8. So now let's look at the next picture of the cat, shot at, what did I do this one at? 2.5. So you see how the picture on the wall is more in focus. There it's buttery and soft. You can barely recognize what's going on there. The sofa is fully blown out. Same thing here. It's not as far blown out as it was in the image before. So this is just at 2.5. So you're seeing a major difference from 1.4 to 2.5. Even the cat's body is more in focus. Same thing. So he's even sharper here. I have no problem shooting at 2.5. It's still a great image, but you buy the 1.4 to shoot it at 1.4 in this type of situation. So we're moving up to a picture of Lil, just to give you a feel for what you can do with the 24mm. The colors are very solid in this image. This is a color corrected image. This is tweaked the way that I would want it to be tweaked. And what you can see is how Lil is being separated from the background because she is shot at 1.4. If this was shot any higher, then the background wouldn't be blurring out. You can see that it's blurring out. And this is also shot at 1000 ISO. So you can see the separation between her, she's in focus, and the background that is now out of focus. So the 24 obviously doesn't zoom. It's something that you have to be comfortable in the setting you're shooting at and, you know, be okay with the people you're photographing if that's what you're photographing. It's going to be great for inanimate objects and blowing them out of focus, or in the studio trying something a little different. It's still very wide, so it's going to be harder in the studio to shoot unless you have a large studio with, you know, large backgrounds and things like that. So we're going through these images before we get into the other ones. This is at 2.8, nothing majorly special, nothing that you couldn't really do with any other 2.8 lens. But remember that the 1.4 is going to be sharper as you go higher up in your aperture because you start using the sweeter spot of the lens. All right, here's some other examples where I'm testing it in a very low light situation with 4000 ISO. This is at 2.8, just showing you the quality of the lens right here. Same thing, give you some color feel. Look how clean the whites are back here. Yes, this is color corrected, but you can see obviously there's a ton of guitars down here. This is a guy named Adam Reaver, runs Floyd Upgrades, owns Floyd Upgrades. They do upgrades to these guitars. So you can see how solid these are. Look how sharp he is, nice and clean. So the image, the focus is pretty quick. It's not as fast as you would want with normal, you know, a 70 to 200 2.8, but it's still pretty quick focus for a, you know, fixed focal lens. You figure they seem to be focusing slower. Like the 85 AFS focuses pretty slow. The 50 1.4 AFS focuses pretty slow. Not as slow as the older ones, but still not as fast as some of the faster zoom lenses. So really, I like this image. This is shot at 2.8 as well. And then here is one shot at 1.4. I was going for the pick, focused right here where he would be picking, and you can see how awesome the background is blown out. You're not really going to get this type of depth of field with a 2.8 lens. So at 1.4, this is great. I had to get really close. Again, you have to be okay with your subjects, and they have to be comfortable with you. So you can see how nice and soft this is, but it's not distracting or anything. It just blows out so well. So that is really great for that lens. Same thing here, 1.4, focused right here under his finger. So you can see how everything blows out. So it's great for, you know, promotional pictures and advertising and really getting close to your subjects. That is what this lens is for. You want to get close to your subject because that's the point of 1.4, is to blow your background out, and by getting closer to your subject with the 24, then you're going to blow the background out. So now we get into New Hope, PA, where I was shooting. This isn't color corrected or anything, but I wanted to show you this is, you know, at 3.2, but look how I got the focus tack sharp right on the corner of this, you know, where the seam is on the American flag. So I just wanted to show that. Now we're going to get into the differences between 1.4 and others. This is 1.4. We're focused right down here. You can see that it's focused here on the gravel and on the rail. All right, this is 1.4. Now this is 2.8. So now the focus has extended even further. I mean, look at the difference here. All right, you see the major difference from one to the other? You see how everything's milky and blown out here? I don't know where milky comes from, but 1.4 and 2.8. You can see how the background comes into more. The background's filling in more with the 2.8 because of your depth of field, and 1.4, it's fully blown out. So you can see the effect we're getting here. Now, same thing, moving on to a tripod here. This is at 1.4, and this is at 2.8. Look at the sign coming back into focus. Here it's way out of focus. We're focused right here on this flower. And now we're still focused on the flower, but look at the difference. Look how much more is coming in focus just at 2.8. So you're seeing how the 1.4 is blowing out. That's really good. Now here's the test I did where I set the tripod up, shot all 3 of the 24s, all at 24. This is the 14 to 24 at f8. All of these are shot at f8. The only corrections here is the white balance. So we have this one is the 14 to 24. This is the 24 1.4, and this is the 24 to 70 2.8. Now watch this area up here where this pole is. So the pole 24 to 70, 24. You can see that it's straightened out more. And now with the 14 to 24, you can see that it bends a little more. But honestly, all the lenses are pretty similar. They're pretty damn close. You can just see this is the 24 to 70. This is the 24. The 24 gives you straighter lines. That's what you're going to get from this fixed focal length lens. Straighter lines. The colors are very similar. The density is a little similar. I mean, they're very similar. If you have the 24 to 70, it's awesome. And this 24, I'll get into it in a minute, who should be buying this lens. But you can just see this. I mean, we can zoom into the corners. If you really want to look like this is just zoomed in at 1:1. You can see the difference here. The sharpest one in the corners, just by looking at stuff like this, is the 24 to 70 2.8. More so than the 24 fixed. But honestly, that's nitpicking if you start doing that. Look at the clarity of the color. Look at how sharp everything is. I'm focused right here on the green wagon. Honestly, straight across the board, I'd rank it probably the 24 1.4 first, 24 to 70 second, and the 14 to 24 third. That's the difference, in all the 24s. They're very, very, very close. And if you weren't looking at all 3 side by side, you probably wouldn't see the major differences. All right, same thing here. 24 1.4 at 1.4 and then at 2.8. So you get the picture here. The background's blowing out. The background's more in focus. And then the last little test I did, just focusing on the pole. This is at 1.4, this is at 2.8, and this is at f16. So just giving you the different effects of what's going to happen as your depth of field changes from 1.4 here. Look how everything is blown out and almost, not recognizable in the background. 2.8, more of your normal lenses are going to be here. And then f16, you can see that most of the background is in focus. And that's what you have. So, is this lens for everybody? Of course, this lens it's not for everybody. Who is this lens for? In your 5-year plan, this is going to be further along in your 5-year plan. If you already own the 14 to 24, the 24 to 70, the 70 to 200 Nikon, what I call the Hebrew Trinity, if you already own those lenses and you have a need for a 1.4, a 24 1.4, and you can afford to spend that $2,200, then yes, it's a lens that you will want to put in your bag. It serves a purpose. It's not going to be an everyday lens that you're going to shoot. For landscapes and things like that, if you already have the 24 to 70, I would still end up using that rather than spending the $2,200 for the 24 1.4. So it's a specialty lens. If you have a need for it and you can afford it and you're making money in your 5-year plan, you're making money at photography and you can definitely afford this lens, then absolutely go ahead and buy it. But my recommendation is you want to own the other integral parts first, because for $2,200, you can get a 14 to 24 for much less. You can get a 24 to 70 for much less. And then that 70 to 200 2.8 version 2 is just $100 more, or roughly about the same price, depending on where you get it, than this 24 1.4. So this is a lens that you get a little further down the line when you can afford it. So really, amazing lens. Not going to deny the fact that it's an amazing lens. I will hopefully one day end up buying it, but it's going to be a very special lens. It's a lens that you really use on certain occasions. So, hopefully this helps you see the difference. I'm going to put up these files that you can download so you can see the difference between the 14 to 24, 24 to 70, and the 24 1.4, all shot at 24 millimeters. So you'll see the sample images. You can make up your own mind. You can analyze them as much as you want. But yeah, this is a great lens. 5 fro picks out of 5 fro picks. Not much of any downsides to it. Well, you know what? 4.5 fro picks. We're going to take a couple of these things off because of the price. Very expensive, very great. It's a very good lens. So I'd buy it. If I can afford it, I'm going to buy it. Jared Polin, FroKnowsPhoto.com. See ya.